You're welcome to My Father Taught Me series, volume 5, series 51, titled We Lost It in the Altar of Inordinate Power. Beloved brethren, the title phrased, We Lost It in the Altar of Inordinate Power, is a metaphorical critique of how core values, spiritual and social integrity or communal well-being are sacrificed for the pursuit of excessive, uncontrolled, or corrupt authority, exhibited mainly by unrepentant evil ones of the society in their inordinate lusts for power, who get lost in the lusts of the eyes and the pride of life, which vices negatively oppose the commandments of the Most High. According to the book of 1 John, chapter 2, verse 16 to 17, I quote, For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world, and the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of the Most High abideth forever. Unquote. The will of the Most High is actually the commandments of the Most High. The unrepentant corrupt men, the bad politicians in power, opposed to the will, the commandments of the Most High, delude themselves to believe erroneously in their hearts that they possess power in perpetuity until it dawn on them when it is too late. The power is transient. The power belongs to the Most High. These are those who have lost it in the altar of inordinate power grabbing. Inordinate power is to be described in this context as an irregular or immoderate desire for control that exceeds moral or legal limits of justice and equity. The altar represents the place where this sacrifice occurs, a point of exchange where integrity is treated in complete defiance to the commandments of the Most High, whereas integrity is the key element for fulfilling the commandments of the Most High, as emphasized by Job in the book of Job, chapter 27, verse 5. I quote, Far be it from me that I should say, you are right. Till I die, I will not put away my integrity from me. Unquote. This highlights Job's commitment to the integrity of righteousness and truth, even amidst severe trials and suffering. Once we set aside the integrity required by the commandments of the Most High and turn our hearts for the lucre of power, the power that was deceitfully proposed to the heart of man by the serpent, saying, Ye shall be as gods, just as once proposed to Eve by the same serpent, of which Eve and Adam once accepted to their peril, resold as bait to humanity again, which humanity is made to lose in the altar of inordinate power. Genesis chapter 3 verse 5. But the Most High doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. However, this time around, the serpent has changed the theme to be as gods to fellow humans, of whom man cannot create a strand of hair created by the Most High on men. That is where humanity lost it in the altar of inordinate power. This attitude was reflected by Lucifer, the devil, in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. I quote, For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Unquote. The above spirit in the world infect humanity to the point where we lost it. To lose it at the altar of inordinate power quest suggests that in the scramble for dominance, individuals or leaders have sacrificed at the altar of inordinate power the righteous character, empathy, or original intent of creation, which was for the pleasure of the Most High, to become an agent of Lucifer thereof and thereafter, and thereby losing it in the altar of inordinate power, which in other words represents in context a system where one authorizes greed and oppression to rule over justice and service. In all their settings, they are dedicated to inordinate power, which often leads to the abuse of power, where decisions are no longer justified by truth, fairness, or morality, but by the need to maintain control at all costs, as is almost the case with my beloved country of today, in corruption of leadership, as is being promoted in some bedeviled political and religious circles, which attitudes have moved to major religious houses meant for worship and prayers, such as was singled out by Christ even in the book of Matthew, chapter 21, verse 12 to 13. I quote, "And Christ went into the temple of the Most High, and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves." Unquote. But unfortunately, most of the leadership of the world, religious houses and systems, without the fear of the Most High, have lost it in the altar of inordinate power of the worldly system. Even in some of the houses meant for worship of the Most High have now been found operating against the commandments of the Most High, as it is written. Christ in action did not mince words when he said, "It is written." The commandments of the Most High, it is written. Going by the phrase, when we say he has lost it in the altar of inordinate power, it is a tragic loss indeed, because even when we forcibly gain power at the expense of the rule of law, the law of justice of the commandments of the Most High shall surely catch up with you, as described in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 11. "As the partridge sitteth on eggs and hatcheth them not, so he that getteth riches and not by right shall leave them in the midst of his days, and at his end shall be a fool." The altar of inordinate power represents spiritual decay of a people instead of spiritual devotion to the Most High. When the altar of a people becomes a place for inordinate power, it attracts darkness and destruction instead of divine guidance. Hence, its core institutions become dedicated to the selfish interests of the powerful. It results in a harvest of freedom without human value, leading to stagnation of the masses in the fallout of the altar of inordinate power. When this happened in the house of the Most High, meant for prayers, as it is written, that explains the alert and action of Christ when he said in the book of Matthew 21, 12 to 13, I quote, "And Christ went into the temple of the Most High, and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves." Just like Christ, carried out his action, as stated above, within the dispensation of the new covenant. It represents the dispensation of using the new spiritual weapon of being wise as serpents and harmless as doves. However, Elijah the prophet in the old covenant dispensation carried out his action in line with the law of the old covenant in an attempt to repair the broken altar of the commandments of the Most High. In consideration of the need for repair to the desecrated altar of purity of the Most High, in order to restore true worship, the phrase the altar of inordinate power suggests that the only way to recover what was lost is to tear down the desecration to inordinate power and rebuild on a foundation of service and righteousness, as also alerted by Prophet Elijah when he made the following proclamations. 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 30 to 32, 36 to 39. I quote, "And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Most High that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Most High came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Most High, and he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed there. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Almighty, the Most High, of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art Almighty, the Most High in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Almighty, the Most High. Hear me, that these people may know that thou art the Almighty, the Most High, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Most High fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, The Most High is the Almighty, the Creator. He is the Most High. Unquote. When we lose it in the altar of inordinate power, there comes the need to tear such altar down. In order to tear down spiritually inordinate power, let us understand inordinate power from a spiritual concept, which is power that is excessive, disorderly, power beyond ethical and sustainable limits of insatiable behavior, in the combination of human spiritual, psychological, and systemic components. It is often fueled by a mix of pride derived from exploits of earthly riches, coordinated by Mammon, the god of money, to create that inordinate desires and an obsession with control, which control is remotely transmitted from their master, the Mammon principality, into idolatry. The idol formed when a person or entity treats power, money, or reputation as an idol, preferring this above all else, making them the center of their existence. They exercise power through brute intimidation and control, including through the suppression of others. They use fear and intimidation to muzzle opposition and maintain control. The above are all that are happening in our beloved country, Nigeria, today. Now, the question is, which way forward? The way forward are of two steps in a spiritual warfare, of which step 1 was described by Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4, which states, I quote, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High, to the pulling down of strongholds." Unquote. Paul highlights that spiritual battles are fought with divine power, not human methods or physical force or worldly strategies. These spiritual weapons are designed to dismantle false ideologies and arguments. Now, the step 2, which is the ultimate weapon, was given to us by Christ in the book of Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. I quote, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." It simply means navigating a hostile world by balancing strategic discerning wisdom with innocent integrity. Practically, it requires being aware of dangers without engaging in dishonesty, being shrewd, not sneaky, and maintaining ethical, gentle, and loving behavior. That is, being harmless, while not being a naive pushover. That is how to relate this in practical terms. Now, to be wise as serpents, that's designing strategy. Assess risks, recognize potential dangers, such as toxic work environments or manipulative people, and plan how to avoid unnecessary conflict. Strategic silence. Now, in strategic silence, discern when to speak about your faith or convictions and when to stay silent to avoid unnecessary fruitless confrontations. Prioritize safety, which is very important. If facing persecution or danger, take steps to protect yourself, such as moving to a different location or changing your approach, rather than needlessly getting involved in a situation described by Christ in the book of Matthew chapter 7, verse 6. I quote, "Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you." Unquote. Don't cast your pearls before swine is a biblical metaphor, meaning one should not waste valuable, sacred, or meaningful things such as wisdom, decorum, or holy resources on people who are unable to appreciate or even understand them, resulting in wastage. It advises against wasting efforts on those who may treat you with hostility or disdain. The phrase is from Christ's Sermon on the Mount. The meaning of pearls. Pearls symbolizes precious items, profound truth, wisdom, or the gospel. Then the meaning of swine is pigs. It represents individuals who are unreceptive, hostile, or scornful of the value offered and may turn to tear you in pieces. We know such people in our beloved country, Nigeria. Now, application of be wise as serpent and harmless as dove. It is simply a call for discernment, advising people to know when to stop trying to convince or help someone who shows no interest or cordiality, rather than persistently forcing it upon them. The phrase encourages us on how to exercise wisdom and avoiding the futility of trying to force value on those who cannot recognize it. It also has to do with situational awareness, as being wise as serpent and harmless as dove. You must understand the motives of those around you to prevent being taken advantage of. Harmless as doves means integrity and gentleness. Maintain integrity as Job. Avoid using deception or manipulation or dirty tricks to win arguments or gain advantages. Act in love. Respond to malice with kindness and maintain a gentle demeanor, reflecting the character of Christ even under pressure. Being wise as serpent and harmless as dove simply imply that we should live blamelessly. In that words, we shall ensure that our actions cannot be justly accused of causing harm or wrongdoing. Be pure motivated. Ensure your actions come from a pure heart, not a desire to retaliate or dominate others. Example in daily life can be referred if a colleague tries to set you up to take the blame for a project. That's what we call in management the wolf. The serpent wisdom is to document your work and communicate via email to avoid the trap, while the dove innocence is to refuse to retaliate, remain polite, and not engage in gossiping or malicious behavior toward that person. What a great weapon of ultimate wisdom and power provided by our Messiah, the Christ. And that is, again, I repeat, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Unquote. Beloved brethren, the only weapon needed to fight against losing it in the altar of inordinate power is what Christ has just given to us. And I repeat it again. He says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Thank you and remain blessed. My name is Steve Emmanuel Mojugbe, a messenger, an author, a Nigerian, copyrights reserved, mftmseries.com. Thank you for watching.